the when you do, like, you do the sexual transmutation, when you do sex, front heart, front throat, crown, you're transmuting unconscious desire. When you go sex, back heart, back throat, crown, you're transmuting attachments. Like when they're attachment, meaning not like cords, like they're clinging to something, you know, they're clinging to some experiences, or they have a story or a dialogue inside, or they're clinging to just feeling good and not feeling anything bad, something like that. The desires, it's not so much about desires of they want to do this, they want to do that. Like you can boil it down to like three base like desires. One desire is just to be soothed or comfortable, like pleasure. It's like a pleasure drive. And then one is um, the desire to have certain experiences, whatever they are. So one's a drive to have experiences. Another desire is the drive to avoid experiences. And so sometimes when there's been abuse, though one of those two usually gets tweaked. Like they seek out and have like a lot of certain kinds of experiences, or they'll like avoid certain kinds of interactions and experiences with people. And so the desire part, you transmute it through sex, front heart, throat, front throat, and crown. The clean or the attachments, um, that would be the same, but on the backside. And so, yeah,
So so you would do that either. So you would do that what? Inhaling the oils, or do that with
yeah.
pH?
Like, let me tell you, I can give you a list of oils here.
And I worked on her. I did a couple of
Uh-huh.
pH sessions with her, and it worked. Like she was very receptive, and I also cleaned some of the trauma from the spleen.
Okay, so for attachments, the first is like sense and like pleasure, like this, like sensory attachments, you know, um, that's acacia. And then I'm doing this from a Buddhist point of view. Um, uh, it says all views. All views just means like opinions, ideas, concepts, things like that. Um, that would be poplar. And then there's this kind of attachment that, in Buddhist, they in Buddhism they describe it more about the Buddhist practice, but it's basically the idea that, oh, if I do something, it's going to resolve all my problems. Like you'll get somebody that will say, oh, if I make it in my industry, it's going to solve all my problems. Or if I do this one thing, it's going to resolve everything. There's like this idea that something's going to be resolved by like avoidance, but doing something else that they like, or some other thing they're pursuing in their world. It's just like how people will think that they're successful in business and that makes them right, or that makes them spiritual, or that makes them, because they're successful in one area, they think they're successful across the board. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it's
Mm-hmm.
that idea. Like it's a kind of a attachment, or a series of attachments. And then self-doctrine, which is just like all your stories. We all have stories. And uh oh, excuse me, the third one is tuberose, and the self-doctrine is sandalwood.
Okay.
And these are all for
So
attachments?
Yeah, different kinds of attachments. Yeah.
Okay. So then
And
Traverse and
then,
the last
and
one
then
was
the desire, like there's a sense like pleasure, desire. That's ginger lily. And then the avoidance, the avoiding experiences is vetiver. Vetiver or ruscus. And then the having experiences is aloes.
so then you would do these oils with the pattern with
Mhm.
either of these two patterns.
I mean, trauma's still going to come up, but the thing is like, you know, a lot of times I talk about these things like in classes, like in layers. And you know, if you really boil it down, you could say there's kind of like a intellectual way to approach it, and then there's an intuitive way. And really, when you come to the intuitive way, um, it really is just about going into intuition, and these things will start resolving themselves. But I find that it's helpful that people go through intellectual like processes for a little bit, because sometimes when you make a shift in intuition and the intellect doesn't quite understand what's happening, they're less likely to integrate it or believe it. Like, you know what I mean? They'll like go, I don't know. And so when you're going at it in the point of intellect, you might make them feel better, but you're not going to resolve it. Like you are going to make it better somewhat, but at some point they're going to feel like we've reached a dead end. I've reached a glass ceiling. I'm frustrated. It's not getting better. And then in that moment, you can move them to intuition. I used to take them right into the intuitive state. And some people would integrate it, but most people would almost like go out and re-traumatize themselves. Like it was when I say they re-traumatize themselves, like their intellect or their mind would double down on the story. You know, like it's hard to explain, but um you know, one of the ways that I used to deal with that in therapy is, you know, it's like when you're doing sessions with somebody and you go, how do you feel? And they go, really don't feel anything. And then you go, well, how's your breathing? And they'll go, oh, it feels deeper. How's your shoulders? Are you still touching your ears? No, they're actually kind of relaxed. How's all that anger? Yeah, it's not really there anymore. You know, like you almost have to ask them questions so that they understand what's happening, because otherwise they'll go, yeah, I really don't feel anything. Or, you know, I just feel a little better. But then when you go, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? You know, you go down the list, then they'll go, oh yeah, I guess I do feel better. And so that's not really for the therapist, that's for the client or patient, whatever you want to call it, for them to like get it in their brain, kind of, you know, get the intellect. Oh, wow, something did happen. You know, I have this family member that like whenever I would do a healing on this person, you know, they would be debilitated, like their back or something would just be, and I'd do a healing for like an hour and a half, and I'd go, how do you feel? And they go, man, I feel so amazing. It was probably that apple I ate, you know, like a couple hours ago or something. And I was like, I just spent like an hour and a half, had you in oils, like all these things. And they were like, yeah. But for them, the brain didn't register what was happening. And so the healing still happened, but like they were trying to make sense out of it. And it was like, you know, all these things, I don't know, but that apple, like that was real. And so
Yeah.
they would say the apple, you know?
Mhm.
And so, you know, it, as much as that's there, over the years, I stopped trying to wrestle with that, and I just like I engage it. Like, you know, if that's what they need for a little bit, I give them that. And you know, you're still kind of prepping things to be able to go deeper. And so, you know, I would do some form of that, however that looks. And I would say it looks different from patient to patient or client to client. No, it's not always
Yeah.
going to be the same, but
And yeah, thank you. And yeah, with this one, it's interesting because she's more receptive and she's open to different things, which makes it easier. But what I'm wondering about are two things. One, really, if I'm combining that with pH, then I mean, I cleaned the arms, I cleaned the legs, I cleaned the trauma, then really adding those patterns to clear out more things.
say that
Like
again.
same thing. So when I'm working with pH, doing these patterns to clear out like the sex, front heart. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other, and then
Like clean
the
the
other,
arms a lot. Like clean the arms a lot.
okay.
Like anytime there's any sort of dissociative, checking out, not feeling present, whatever that is, it's arms and legs. It's always arms and legs.
Mhm. Yeah, and I did EV on all the minor